When I was 34, I lived in Portland, Oregon, working in retail management at one of those chain stores you see on every corner at least once in your life. I loved my job because it gave me a sense of purpose and stability in a world that wasn't always so clear to me. I wasn't rich by any means, and I wasn't chasing fame, but I took pride in what I did. I made sure the floors were clean, the inventory was organized, and the customers were treated with respect, even if we didn't have what they were looking for. That pride wasn't always mirrored in the people I worked with, especially not in our district manager, who we all called the professor. On account of how he talked down to us like we were all clueless kids barely out of school, he was this elected authority in our store with all the power, and none of the humility. I had been with the store for over 5 years, and I thought I would finally be recognized when they needed someone to promote. He'd held things over us for months, talking about how the next regional promotion was coming up and how we all had a chance, but we didn't. Instead, they promoted Jason. Jason was everything. I wasn't new to the company, flashy with the judgment of a goldfish, and he somehow managed to charm his way into the professor's good books. I got passed over because I lacked charisma, they said. I had communication issues. Whatever that meant. I talked to customers every day. I ran a nightly report on sales. I trained new employees. And I made sure we were ready for every corporate surprise visit. Why didn't that count? Looking back on it, I realized that this job wasn't where I was meant to be, but at the time I felt betrayed, and it wasn't just me. Everyone said that I was a way better fit for the job than Jason, who had no idea how to deal with inventory, let alone how to talk to corporate without blushing like a schoolboy. Things only got worse when Jason was given too much control. It started with small stuff, rotations being done wrong, reports not being filed, employees getting nicked for things that didn't apply or make sense. Then one day, while I was flipping through a shelf near customer service, I spotted him. He was no one spectacular, just another guy in a hat and sneakers using his phone by the exit camera aisle, but something clicked. I remembered the Bolo photo right away, the grab and run from the neighboring store. The blurriness made it almost useless, but I remembered the way the suspect walked in the photo. I remembered noticing his walk back then, which I thought odd. He was clumsy, but focused, as if he had a plan, like that was a part of some heist, and not just a dude who needed a quick haul of electronics. I called out. I told the person on register to keep an eye on him. He was copying the earlier Bolo like everything was a mirror image. Jason heard me. I expected him to jump and take charge. He didn't. He stayed behind the register window watching the guy like he was a TV show. Then, while I was distracted with a discount customer, he escaped. Not the guy, Jason, I mean. He let the man roam free while the suspect acted normal. He left the register unattended. It was either selfishness or stupidity. I stopped talking about him. I stopped trusting him. The next week came, and sure enough, it happened again. The same man in the fisherman's hat entered our store. Guards were back. Were always one or two guys floating in and out of the back for inventory and pulling product. But this time I noticed something else. He didn't just grab stuff like last time. At one point he walked into the back storage area. He took time moving. And I realized then he was casing the joint. He was going to hit again, big this time. I followed him discreetly, let him do his thing. He didn't buy anything, just browsed and left. He seemed to smile to himself as he exited the store. I didn't tell Jason this time. I decided to observe. I put in some extra time. When the boss wasn't around, I got a second look at the man. I took note of his build, maybe 511, mid-180s, wearing gray hoodie and dark jeans. I kept a mental watch for him, expecting him to return, but he didn't. Not until the end of the month. The day he came back was brutal. We had a shipment of high-end wireless earbuds and smartwatches that would have flown off shelves in hours, especially around the holidays. But the professor had just emailed me telling me they were lowering our security budget, so no extra cameras and no extra coverage from police. All because of budget issues, he claimed. Half the building looked like a sun-bleached mess. He didn't fix the roof that was leaking. The drop ceiling tiles all leaned in awkward angles. One section smelled like mold and burnt laptops. He slashed landscaping, told us to stop ordering new cleaning supplies, and wanted everyone to believe customer service didn't suffer. Portland was already cold in December, but store felt colder than usual. Then this guy walked in again. The same body, the same hat, the same Jordans. I remembered those the first time he was spotted with them. He looked like he wanted the shoes to be the only thing you remembered about him, but this time something was different. This time I followed him into the back area after he made a beeline past employee-only signs, acting like he could read them before laughing them off. I kept my distance as he browsed through a storage locker behind the employee break room. Not the commodity area, but the actual secured storage room, where backstock was held: overnight cables, RTX graphics cards, televisions in bulk. All of it locked behind a single rusty barcode reader with a code known only to managers and the security team. I didn't have a key, but I trusted it was locked. It was, but he went in anyway. Wait, how did he know the code? Then I realized he wasn't on his own. He had help. Someone inside was covering him, and the only person who could have given him the code was someone with access, either Jason or the professor himself. But I wasn't about to play detective just yet. I called the security desk and then stood in a surveillance position waiting for help. We had a camera in the support hallway, so I saw him. That's where I got the first still shot of him in the back locker. He was selecting items at random, placing them in his vest-style backpack that was zipped loud enough to hear. He didn't even try to sneak, he just took. By the time I returned to the front, the man was gone again. But this time he didn't just leave without signs of chaos, he almost escaped. Jason decided to do something and chase after him, but the culprit got away, leaving 5 Falcons and 2 product displays knocked over in the wreckage. The store lost $10,000 and some change that day. We filed a report with the local precinct and the corporate office, but it never moved to the top of any list. Big store, bigger losses. The case was shelved while Jason took a promotion bonus at the end of the month for his swift reaction. I stayed late after that. Picked up covering extra night shifts even when I didn't need to, charting incidents, seeing habits forming around our own employees, watching emails, noticing how often Jason used the back locker, how often he closed reports on his own, how often he would go on about doing extra work all alone, and the more I paid attention, the clearer it became. He was dirty. There was no way a bottom-tier rep like him could afford the new Rolex. The reviews were positive, but definitely not priced for a guy who still ate granola bars for lunch and bought premium knockoff shoes. And yet here was Jason, decked out in necklaces that looked real, walking around correcting shifts like he was king of the parking lot. He wasn't a manager, he was a parrot. He wasn't company property, he was a thief. I made a choice that night. I decided to play along, pretend to be on his side. Spend more time around him, get close enough to see what he was up to. I was not the kind of guy who looked for revenge. I let a lot of things slide. But this affected others. I thought about the employees who showed up every day, took the full load, walked the floors, cleaned the mess, but never saw a dime if we closed under cash that day or ran a short return log. There were breaks in the numbers, not just from the theft, but from the decisions he made. Mistakes that seemed framed like they came against our core policies. I became his friend. I laughed. I clapped him on the shoulder. We even shared coffee. And then slowly he started to trust me. He got careless. He would call me in the middle of the night asking me to fix code scramblers or override inventory when he made purchases that weren't logged properly. He would swipe security cards to let a friend in, or even grab customer info to later sell to some sort of lead generation scam. That's when I started recording, not at work, not on company devices. I used my own phone clamped inside carpenter pants when I shadowed him. I kept notes on a notepad when he let his mouth run at lunch, and sure enough, I caught it all. I started getting documents, copies of login trails, timestamps showing how often he accessed our backend servers, with leaks of product serials matching the missing items on our inventory reports he was stealing. And the professor, he was giving him cover. Every email chain he sent out to corporate explaining the shortages was technical okay. Weather damage, returns, misplaced stock, rain damage from before arrival, backorder issues. All blame went to something generic, something muddled. I gathered every scratch of evidence, everything I could find. I started setting calls, recording them without index numbers, making sure not to cross legal lines. As far as I could tell, I'm not allowed to share employee conversations without prior consent. But in Portland, I was allowed to record one-sided. That worked for me, and by February I had boxes of proof that this guy was feeding off our store. But being prepared wasn't enough. I wanted more than to fire him, more than to see him hauled off in cuffs. I wanted him to face the consequences in a way that mattered. That would leave him with nothing, that would make him sit among everyone, watching them talk while he realized no one was on his side. Revenge needed to be public, and for that I needed time. Then destiny knocked. At the end of March, we were told that the professor was being relocated to Seattle. He had pulled too many strings with the regional committee. And before he moved, he wanted to throw one last thank you dinner at the central office for Jason and a few other hand-picked employees. He believed Jason had helped save revenue through invisible management strategy, whatever that meant. It was on the outskirts of downtown Portland in this historic old building they rented out for events. It was already booked months in advance, but they had our own day, and they invited us. I saw an opportunity. I RSVP'd under the excuse that I wanted closure, that I so dearly wanted to thank Jason personally. Even after everything that night, I wore my best jacket, red, the color the company chefs were most careful with when they brewed coffee. The guests arrived. The professor was sipping wine with his graying beard cut straight edges. And Jason, he came looking like he expected a Grammy and a mic. We were seated at different tables. I had already slipped my phone under the rim of the table, hidden inside a tablecloth pin I had left unbuttoned at the beginning. I spilled water on my lap on purpose, so the waiter would come and clean, trying to draw attention away from my movements. I was ready. Recording just started. The desserts came. It looked amazing, but I didn't care. Because I had made a call before walking in, I knew someone who handled loss prevention and security, and she used to work in retail back in the day. A redhead named Stacy who taught me how to file reports properly. I had contacted her weeks ago, and now she was here in the room, watching. She was seated directly behind the professor, video camera under her coat, plain eyes. I wasn't going to wait for some investigation. I was going to light the thing up. I began walking toward Jason while he was halfway through a braggart story. "Jason," I called. He turned, looking confused. Everyone else at the table paused mid-laugh. I think the professor might want to see something. I grabbed his phone first and placed it on the table, then the professor's, then a pile of receipts pulled from Jason's desk. Then I continued talking. "You remember that grab and run from April last year? The same guy came back 3 more times. Each time he accessed back storage with the exact routing code that no one else used except you. That's not coincidence. That was carelessness. That was dependency, that was betrayal, and that's not the only proof I have." The room fell silent. Someone almost dropped their fork. "You broke chain of custody logs, you manipulated inventory data, let burglars take store property, and every time you covered it up, used the professor as your scapegoat. But the real hero or villain, depending on your POV, was never him. It was you." Jason stood up, startled but angry, grab-like. "You've got no proof," he said. But even he didn't sound convinced. Then that's when Stacy stood. She turned on the projector. They had used it to show family photos of previous regional employees, all smiling, mostly untouched. But what came on next? Evidence. Snapshots of Jason opening storage late at night, videos caught sneaking equipment in and out of company crates. Security footage of him logging into systems under his employee access that he clearly wasn't assigned to. Documents of stolen serial numbers. Dark web listings for product IDs from our store. My recorded conversations between him and his partners in crime, including a couple of calls that were clearly setups with suppliers he had special deals with. Then I did the thing I had rehearsed all year long. I turned toward the professor, now standing with his wine glass shaken tight. "I wanted to apologize," I said clearly into the room. "I was angry you passed me over for Jason originally, but now I see that's not what I need to apologize for." The professor was frozen. I stepped closer. "You shouldn't apologize because you denied me a promotion. You should apologize because you promoted the wrong man." And with that, I pulled out a folder, a real one, like those Hollywood folders everyone panics about. I slid it on the table. It was everything I had, and it came straight from my side of the ledger. Then I turned to Jason. "By the way," I said with a grin, "I've been working the networking project with our vendors this year. You know what's funny? They called last week wanting to confirm your Boston meeting, but I told them you weren't qualified and that you had real coffee breath." Everyone at the table laughed except Jason. He didn't know what I was talking about. Of course not. Because while following him, I noticed he sold the stolen inventory through an online warehouse he was developing, a shady second career as a resale dealer online under a fake business page. He thought he was slick, thought no one noticed the packages leaving the side lot late at night, thought I didn't check the UPS logs outside that were signed under his name. Well, I didn't at the time, still didn't make it right, but I had found a method to tear it open. Earlier this month, I had logged into the warehouse page myself. He coded it under his own IP address, thinking he could mask it through burner cards, but I already knew he was stupid enough to leave his device unlocked. When I hacked his work phone the other week and gained access to his side accounts, it was painfully easy to just swap one thing out. I changed the profile photos, replaced all the inventory tabs with pages deep inside his own sales history. A visual wall of stolen stock, each marked with tag I had stolen his mocks, and put them on full view for the entire sales group he was trying to pitch to, and his finance call in Boston. He was supposed to meet investors and give a presentation on how his front was company officially run. Where we mistook the project as his side hustle fortune, the investors thought it was fraud. I made sure of it, and now here I was watching Jason's face go from confident jerk to confused target. He was talking in front of people who had just seen what was hidden for months. He hadn't expected his world to collapse in real time, but with his reputation suddenly stained, the only option he had was to ferociously blame someone else. But it was too late. The corporate investigators were already asking quiet questions. They checked his phone, his emails, his texts with the black market vendors. The professor was instructed to say nothing while they swept his office, and by the end of the night, Jason was gone, not just from the employee list either. 4 separate investigations opened by the end of the next day. Internal security had his registration of warehouse addresses. His assets were frozen in real time by the bank he used on request from our legal team. Our regional reps from Dallas confirmed he had been submitting fake audits over the past 2 months, trying to pass stolen product as returned defective units. The funny thing, we only began to recover everything once I reclaimed back control of the security logs. We had lost nearly $65,000 through him in less than 6 months. IFTAA tool was running the inventory. Jason had been the operator. And when you ask what I did for the rest of that term, I terminated the program, ended the overnight storage tags, cut off his access to key systems, and assigned security monitoring back to me. And guess what? Customer satisfaction went up. Theft dropped by 49%. Inventory accuracy beat corporate standards. Even installments were called the most professional they'd seen since DC when they tried to cut costs. As for me, I turned in my resignation shortly after. I had carried this revenge in my chest for nearly a year and a half, and I made his rise his fall and everything between matter. I didn't feel glory. I felt relief the professor was asked to step down from his role, but he didn't lose anything after some verbal stretching. He got moved to hospitality, been overseeing restaurants in Seattle. Good for him. And as for Jason, he was banned from working any retail job in the region for the next 5 years. Some say he now might be running bar services in downtown, who knows. I stopped keeping track after week 2 of his unemployment. As for me, I work security now, LA-based. My contract spans multiple states. I'm not just bound to carts and receipts anymore. I survey buildings, I track data, I lead real teams, not ones that forget the rules because of status or shame. Revenge tasted good back then, but peace and power taste better now. Once I had everything I needed, it was no longer about proving I was right. It was about teaching him to remember the rules he always claimed to improve. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but sometimes it's fire so distant you forget it exists until someone hands you that last burn and reminds you how hot you can make them crumble.